Mary Kay and I were talking this morning, and we have been working on this for so long that we thought we actually might cry when she said that the governor was going to sign. They showed the county turning red. I can't promise that's still not going to happen in the next 45 minutes, but just know we have put a lot of time into this. So what we're telling you here today is stuff that we have, we've worked out the bugs, and we did that because we didn't want to launch a statewide initiative and then find out all, the different kinks. So we have fixed all of those for you, we believe. You can surprise us and find something along the way, but I don't think that you will. I think we have this figured out. As Barbara said, my name is Dawn Carber. I'm with the Spokane Workforce Development Council. And just very quickly, the reason I got into this is when I took my current job, one of the things I had to do was manage the WorkKeys contract, and it didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't understand it. No one was talking about it. I didn't understand why businesses were using it. And so I pulled the three companies together, three large manufacturing companies together that were using it. And I said to them, no one talks about this. Frankly, it seems like a waste of money to me. Why are you doing this? And there was silence, just crickets. And finally, one person said, well, why would we tell anyone about one of our best kept hiring secrets? And it sort of dawned on me at the time, and the other two nodded their heads, and they said, yeah, one company said, we've probably saved $1 million using this. Why would I tell the guy across the street? Right? Okay, so that's why we're here, because this really does work. And if you feel like, well, I don't know anything about this or I haven't heard about it, don't think that it's not being used, and we'll hear from Jason a bit more about how his company is using it. It's being used, and I also should tell you that normally Mary Kay and I give this presentation, and it takes us about an hour and a half, and I have 10 minutes. So I'm going to move really quickly, and then we're going to turn over to the panel. But I wanted to give you just a quick background on WorkKeys versus NCRC versus Keytrain, so that what they're saying will make some sense to you. So first, does anyone use this? Yes, a lot of people use it. 24 states, as we heard from Deborah. 24? 27? 24 states. Jobs profiled, over 20,000. What that means is an employer, a business person, let an ACT profiler, an ACT trained profiler in their company for about a week, learning everything they could learn about a job, which takes a lot of time and there's business expense. 20,000 have been done across the country. Total individuals with National Career Readiness Certificates, 2.9 million. And if you look on the website, those go up daily, weekly. The growth is incredible. Total number of employers supporting this, 8,000, almost onto 9,000. Maybe we're above it. 9,200. I pulled this the other day, and we're at 9,200. 9328. This is one of those things you have to be on the website to get the accurate number, because it's growing.
It's like a ticker tape.
It's growing that quickly. 24 states are using this, and within those states, over 3,000 communities are supporting this. And what that means is those communities are all going to be fighting essentially to recruit the great businesses of our country and elsewhere to be in their community. And they're going to do that by showing that they have the most highly skilled workforce, and we want to be among those. So very quickly, so this is where I'm going to show you the difference between WorkKeys, NCRC, and Keytrain. WorkKeys is the name, just at the most basic level, of all the assessments you see on the screen. It's the name of all the assessments that have to do with career readiness, basically, that ACT has to offer. That's WorkKeys. 3 specific tests make up the National Career Readiness Certificate, and Deborah showed you a slide. That's because they found these are the most most frequent skills needed by employers. We saw that. I was surprised I have so many of the slides that you used, Deborah, so I'm going to fly through this. So this is great. This is what a certificate looks like. If you take those 3 specific tests, you score high enough, you get a certificate. You include a copy of that with your resume. As of today, if you get a platinum certificate, you will have the governor's signature on your certificate, which is really impressive.
Not every state can boast that.
No. We saw these slides. So that was WorkKeys, NCRC, and now Keytrain. Keytrain is the study guide. And you might know that most of the work sources in our state offer Keytrain at no cost. And if you become a part of this and your community is interested, you need to let Employment Security know that you would like them to keep funding that license. It's very important. Selfless plug there. It's really important because there's a cost to all of this, and we believe in it so much that we need this to be a community effort. And this is something Employment Security has been paying for on your behalf. The way that KeyTrain works is you can study either before or after you take the test. If you study before, you go into the WorkSource Center, you'd sign up. Any of your students can do this. Sign up and practice, and then they know roughly how they're going to do on the test. Some people decide just to go in and take it. They might earn a silver, and maybe they want to be a gold. You would go back to WorkSource, you would use KeyTrain, and you would upskill, and then come back and retest. And Mary Kay, you were going to talk about this, but since you're over there, I'll just run through this.
Okay.
This was about what's happened in Washington State, and we saw the video, you saw the website. I think that's been pretty well covered. The point being that we're very much trying to coordinate efforts because we wanted to band together, because if one community is offering certificates, that means very little for your students or for our job seekers. That's not a portable certificate, essentially. They could move to a different state and have it be recognized. They could go to Oregon or South Carolina. But we only want to offer something that's valuable in our state. So we're spreading this across the entire state and would love to partner with you to make it available in your community. And on the screen, you see the 24 testing locations that we presently have. Most are at community colleges, but some are at K-12, and some are at WorkSource centers. And now we're going to move into a panel discussion. We have private and public representatives here, business partners, who are going to tell you why they're using this. So really quickly, we'll just run through and have everyone introduce themselves, and just a quick overview of how long you've been working with WorkKeys. Start with Jason.
Very good. I would bring that a little bit closer. So you just heard from me a couple seconds ago. I work for Pacific Gas and Electric Company. I've been working with I've been at PG&E for 2 years, and I've been working with WorkKeys for about 5 years. I've been doing workforce development. I worked for a community college and a one-stop, or a community workforce development organization, and started using WorkKeys there. So brought that along with me when I went to the utility.
And again, I'm Mary Kay Bredesen. I'm the Executive Director for the Center of Excellence for Aerospace and Advanced Manufacturing. That's hosted by Everett Community College, and I work with the aerospace sector. My introduction to WorkKeys actually was about 5 years ago when we were applying for the first Department of Labor grant, and it actually was a different grant. I was working with Bellevue College, and we were trying to look at the IT and how it intersected with energy, manufacturing, and allied health. And we had a red team review our grant application, and there was somebody there from the Gates Foundation. And this individual asked me, well, are you embedding WorkKeys? And I had no idea what she was talking about. And so I did a little bit of investigation, which led me to meeting Don Carver over in Spokane, who at that time was one of the only Spokane area that was using WorkKeys, and it was being endorsed by, as she mentioned, I think it was at that time 5 companies, and they had actually been profiled. We moved, we embedded the WorkKeys, as I stated earlier, the testing into our Department of Labor grant that we were recipients of, Air Washington, and we received such positive feedback from our industry partners that hired our students that, as Barbara stated, I was adamant that we extend that net, cast that net, and bring in construction and energy, and it's been very, very successful.
My name's Tracy Jackson. I'm the Assistant Clerk of the Board for Cowlitz County. And before that, I worked in the budget office at Cowlitz County. And I also work, as my job now, I work part-time in the Human Resources Department. And when I came back to the county and worked in my current job, I had to take the NCRC test to come back to the county, because Cowlitz County is we're the only ones in Washington doing it. So I was able to pass the test, walk in, pass the test, and so I've been employed since.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Dunn. I work for Cowlitz County HR Department for, well, 27 years or so, but who's counting? We have used the testing for about a year and a half, and we have a working relationship with Lower Columbia College, who does the testing for us, and it has been working perfectly.
Great, thank you. So we have a few prepared questions that I'll ask each panelist, and panelists, you can decide if you don't have a response for the question, maybe it doesn't apply to you. And then we'll open it up to questions so we can have a group discussion and you can get some of your questions addressed. So the first question, why do you find value in an NCRC in addition to formal education? So if someone has a college degree, for example, or a certificate, why would they also need an NCRC?
So we, again, the value we find is that base education, and it varies from person to person, having different strengths. So their formal education aside, the scores vary for each individual within the NCRC, and that we use that base to help build the curriculum that we have, to help build the training. So their education level varies. Even though they've graduated, they have that certificate. They score differently on the test. So we use that as a base.
And we're asked by other educators, well, does this diminish the Compass exam that we give our college entrants? No, it does not. In fact, ACT will tell you that they have crosswalked the NCRC to the Compass in reading and in math. Our COE was given some money by the Workforce Training Board, and it was leftover Perkins funding, and they said, Mary Kay, if we gave you X amount of dollars, would you be able to spend it by the end of June? And I said, of course. And so we tested 250 graduating seniors in 4 different school districts. I had the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction pick those 4 school districts. What we did is, the criteria was we had half male, half female. We had students that had IEPs. We had students who had declared and were already going on into, had been accepted at a 4-year. We had students that were done with school and said, I'm not going again, I'm just going to get a job. And then we had students that were both in academia and then some that were in the career technical education programs. And what we heard from those students is that they felt this was the first assessment that really benefited them, because you can go for a job and you can go with your high school diploma or your college degree, and again, it's not to diminish that, but it does not really tell the employer if you are a critical thinker or even what your math skills are. And I kind of liken it to, it's another tool in your tool belt, very similar to the Cisco certification. Employers knew back in the late 1990s when they were, trying to develop IP networks, if you came with a certificate that said you had a CCNA or a CCNP, they knew exactly what your skill sets were just based on that certificate, because they knew what you had been assessed in. And that's what the NCRC does, is it complements any high school diploma or college degree.
And I think to add to that for Cowlitz County, we put it in a lot of our job descriptions as jobs become open, and it's a baseline for when people apply. It's kind of a starting point for the department to look at, and we know their at least their base level is a certain level to move forward in the application process.
So do you say it's got to be a gold or it's got to be a
Silver level. Most of them are silver level. Yeah.
So just to add to that, we do use it for a screening tool. when applicants apply for positions. We keep those certificates, so they do not need to produce them later for any other jobs that they apply for too as well.
All right, the next question is about the biggest impact the NCRC or WorkKeys has had on your company. Before you answer that, does anyone feel like they need to elaborate on how your company uses it as a hiring or screening tool? I think you've pretty well covered it. All right, so the question is, what has been the biggest impact on your company since implementing WorkKeys or the NCRC?
Okay, so I'll start with that. For us, for Cowlitz County, we have found that a lot of our processes are from back in the 60s, 70s era, and so we're trying to get up to speed with the current year. So up until 2 years ago, we literally had a manual process in which we tested applicants. So when we had a job opening that required testing to be done, we set one day, one time in the evening, and all applicants, if they were interested in the position, had to take the test on that one day. It didn't matter if they were applying from Florida or locally. They had to be there for that test. Put a lot of pressure on the applicants. Obviously, I probably would have flunked. Anyway, so now what we do is we've partnered with LCC, Lower Columbia College, and the applicant has the choice to go in, take any of the 3 tests, modules, at their own time and pace. So the plus for us and the applicants was with our paper process of testing, it took us a couple weeks to score those tests. We then sent a letter to the applicants letting them know what their score was. And this was all done before we even started the interview process. Now, we have the testing results within 3 days. I mean, we allow the applicants to take the test 3 days after the posting closes. And that's the only reason why there's a 3-day lapse. But the applicant knows when they take the test what their score is. We don't receive phone calls from the applicants wanting to know what their scores are, so that helps us a lot. So it has helped us and the applicants, and it has just made the process go a lot smoother and less costly for us too as employers.
And before we move on, have you seen a change in your workforce? Did it help you hire better applicants, or is it really just an internal process? Because that's what it is for some companies.
We have found that we have found that there are a lot more applications that we're receiving for these jobs, and the department heads and elected officials are having struggles, and they're requesting our assistance to help screen the applications themselves, because we are really seeing a lot of qualified individuals applying for these jobs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will say one benefit that we've seen from using NCRC is the consistency. We have training programs throughout the state of California, throughout our service territory, and we know when we use WorkKeys, it's a consistent screening tool throughout the state. And the benefit, again, we know that foundation that they're coming to the training with. So they're bringing that knowledge base, and it's increased. So our off the street passing the test rate is about 58-60%. And with this foundation, setting that foundation with WorkKeys, that and then going through the Power Pathway program, the pass rate of the pre-employment tests is at about 95%. So it's a significant increase in the preparing students and having their education set. I need to be very clear. So the company doesn't use it as a hiring screening tool. Power Pathway uses it as a screening tool for our training program. So we do set the bar 554. They have to have those scores, and then if they do not have that level, they go back to the Community Workforce Development Organization and use WorkTrain. Keytrain, thank you, to get prepared to try again.
It brings up a really good point. So companies across the country use this differently. Some prefer the National Career Readiness Certificate, so you can still apply even if you don't have it. Some say you could get moved up the interview list if you have it. Others require that you have an NCRC. And others that we've talked to, they don't do any WorkKeys testing pre-hire, but they test every employee post-hire, and they use it for succession planning and promotions as a way to identify their best employees and put them on a management track so that they don't leave. So every company that you talk to will use it differently, and in some states, and I'm not promoting this here, but in some states, community colleges and training programs use it as entry into the program. So I just want you to be aware that there are so many different ways of using it. If you have questions, again, we encourage you to give us a call because it's not going to be used the same in every community or by every employer. And when you hear the word profile, what it means is that an ACT-trained profiler went to a company for about a week, maybe 2 weeks, learned everything there is about that specific job, and then selects, based on their knowledge of the WorkKeys system, from the tests that are most likely to get the employer the best possible candidate. And when you're profiled, you get to choose from the entire list of maybe 12 or 13 tests. But for the National Career Readiness Certificate, we're just referring to the 3 assessments. So the next question is about cost. Thank you for that. The price per NCRC varies across the country, but it's typically in the $25 to $50 per certificate range. Does your company cover the expense for this?
Okay. We are a county, a public entity, I guess you would say. So it took us, before we started the testing, it took us about a year of conversations with our elected officials because we in HR wanted the applicant to pay for the test. The elected officials were concerned that they would never get any applicants for any of their positions if they had to pay for their own tests. So what we did was we set up a kind of like a trust for people who could apply to have the test paid for, like for a hardship fund type system. And right, like a scholarship. And so the county put in the $1,000. Lower Columbia Trust holds that money, and I believe there have only been one, maybe two applicants who have used it. The rest of them have paid themselves or through other sources. And our test in Cowlitz County is $48 for the total of the 3. That answer your question?
So we're, I feel we're in California, so we and we pay for the students or applicants do not pay for the WorkKeys assessment. It's either paid for by the company, Pacific Gas and Electric, or through the grant that's funding the training program at the time. So students do not pay. Because it does cost money, we do the cheapest stuff first. So we will have them, we'll do the phone screen and less costly in-person interviews, things of that nature before we do the WorkKeys and drug testing, things that cost money. So we do, we narrow it down. We usually have about 1,000 applicants for a Power Pathway program, and we usually typically test around 200 applicants with WorkKeys.
For the community technical colleges, we have used 2 DOL grants to pay for the testing of our students. So with Air Washington, we, in our grant proposal, we said that we would test 1,000 of our students. Our magic number was 2,615. We went over that. We went, let's see, we trained over 3,000 students. 1,000 of those were assessed in the NCRC. With the WISE grant, I believe we put in for 800 students. So we're paying for that, and we allow for one makeup. If they don't pass, then they can get on Key Train and skill up, and we'll pay for another test. Now, I want you to know there are several school districts within Washington State. Everett Community College, or excuse me, Everett School District is one of them. Medical Lake in Spokane. There's some in Tri-Cities. I believe there's Lower Columbia, where they've purchased it for their school district, and they've embedded it in their senior year in the senior seminar. Because they feel that that is part of their culminating, and I think the laws are changing on this, but right now in Washington State, every senior must have a senior culminating exhibit or project, and they go through 1 quarter senior seminar. So they've embedded it in that senior seminar, which I think totally makes sense. We've got some school districts that are using Perkins funding to offset the cost. In a perfect world, we would like to be like other states so that all of our seniors who graduate from high school, not only do they have a high school diploma, but wouldn't it be nice if they've been assessed in these 3 areas and they walk out the door with a certificate that says, I'm ready to go to work?
That actually is what happens in Michigan, for example. On graduation day from high school, a student is presented their diploma and they get their NCRC at the same time.
We have the Aerospace Pipeline Committee for our state that reviews the training programs, and they provide initiatives to the legislature, and one of them 2 years ago was that 2,500 of our graduating seniors would be assessed in the NCRC. The governor embedded the cost in his budget. It passed in the House, but it failed in the Senate.
There are a lot of ways that Cowlitz County and Clark County, just south of us, have gotten together and really come up with some strategic ways to make this as little of expense on applicants as we can. The Opportunity Grant Program at LCC can pay for assessments. The Worker Retraining Program at LCC can help pay for assessments. Our WorkSource Center, both in Cowlitz and Clark County, will give people vouchers to pay for the assessments.
And in Spokane, we write NCRC funding into every grant application, and we're normally working on a grant application every week. So we write it into every grant application and require all of our contractors, we bid out all of our services to offer the National Career Readiness Certificate. So at any given time, we can't fund everyone who wants to go through the testing, but we certainly can find a way to fund the majority.
So I have a quick question for Jason. I know that Center for Energy Workforce Development has done some profiling. That came up earlier. Do you know what those occupations are that they did that profiling?
I do not.
You don't? Okay. But the profiling is a little bit different. So Avista is a member of CEWD. Tacoma Power is a member of CEWD. I think there might be some synergies to tie back and find that out. I don't know the answer to it. So, okay.
I can say that the primary occupations that we utilize WorkKeys for is our entry-level utility workers, gas service workers, and our pre-apprentice linemen are the 3 primary job classifications.
Yeah, I would bet lineman is one that they have profiled. Do you know that? They have? Okay, Jeremy
Yes,
might.
they have.
Maybe Jeremy knows the answer to my question. Do you? All right, okay, all right. Okay, good.
There is on the ACT website a database where they post all of the jobs that have ever been profiled and average the scores. So if you're ever interested in the score necessary to succeed in a job, you can look that up on the ACT website. And we've embedded the link in the presentation that I just gave, and Barbara can share that with you or post on their website if you should want it. And we have made it through all the questions that we had prepared for the panelists, so we want to open it up to the audience. And Barbara, I hope is going to go around with a microphone. Perfect.
Wait.
Oh, we get that.
So her question is how long is the certification good for? Is there an expiration?
That's a great question, and it's one that we've actually looked at ACT. Because it is skills-based, we really encourage to look at it from 5 years. So if you were looking to, once you make a hiring decision, someone's probably in that job, chances are you're probably not going to make them reassess in 5 years. But if somebody is looking to make a job change or you're looking to do something different after a 5-year period, it may be good, to look at that unless these are skills that are embedded that they're growing, or constantly using. Same with the job profiling. We usually suggest a job profile is done every 5 years. What we find is that the jobs change and the skill set required to do them change. So it's probably a good recommendation or rule of thumb. Does that help answer the question?
Another question?
Yes. I hadn't heard of this credential before. This is really a growing credential, recognized credential across the country. In the state of Washington, this is really just getting underway in Cowlitz County. What is being done intentionally from you folks' aspect to inform high school administrators and students of the desirability of this credential? Is it being done grassroots, or is there something through the superintendent of public instruction saying, hey, this is a really important component to the success of our workforce? What's being done in that regard?
I would say, and Mary Kay can answer this as well, I would say it's both grassroots as well as top-down. On our state leadership committee, we did have a member from OSPI. This is something that's you've been sitting here with us for almost 2 hours, and most of you probably understand it now. We sometimes get about 60 seconds with someone and try to explain the importance of this. And so really what we're doing here today is a way to get it to roll out across the state. So now that you understand it, if you have an opportunity to talk to someone at OSPI, we would encourage that, or elsewhere. And we've also made presentations to chambers and HR organizations and K-12. We've come up with ways to fund testing for hundreds of high school students. And as soon as you're able to do that and the teachers see it and the students see it, they want it, but it takes that sort of ongoing communication.
Just to add to that, so when we first started this, at least 3 years ago, the question we always were asked by educators, because I represent education, is, well, okay, we'll do this, but what good is it to spend this money unless industry validates it? So we're doing a grassroots and top-down. But more importantly, we need industry to validate this as necessary, because if they validate it, then you can be sure education will somehow find a way to pay for it, so that, again, our students who are graduating from our programs, whether it's a high school program or a 2-year, that gives them another tool that helps them secure that job, because ultimately that's our end goal, is for our students to get good family wage jobs.
And we do have businesses using it in Washington that don't talk about it. I assure you, we have some major corporations who use this,
Yes.
as well as in some of the smaller rural communities. You'll be surprised to find out who uses this. And some companies have private contracts with ACT, so we don't know that they're using it. And again, they don't want people to know. It's a hiring secret. But as soon as we explain this to them, then they say, oh, I get it, I'll support this. So we really do need everyone's help in trying to lift this up and make the effort work.
And that probably is one of the most frustrating things we have, is that we do know there are some major corporations that are using it, but they're not going to broadcast it. I can safely say that in Everett, we were approached by Stockpot, who is owned by Campbell Soup Company. They want to be profiled. Their company in Texas was profiled, and so they're having problems retaining their workforce and hiring. And so they came to us and they said, yes, we want to be profiled and we want to use the NCRC. Another company in Auburn has approached us and said, we too want to, Dawn mentioned that some want to have all of their employees assessed in this, and of course, they'll bear the cost of that, to set a benchmark. We've had a couple of companies that have come from the East Coast and automatically expect, have relocated here and automatically expect that we have job profilers, and we're using the NCRC. So we have to ramp up and address those needs. But they're coming from the East Coast.
We have another question from the audience.
Yeah, I think that on the job profiling, which I think is a key element of the grassroots
Yes, I would agree.
acceptance here to do that, what really is the timeline of a company from a company wanting to get done or to have their key jobs profiled and getting that completed, and what's the cost either to the state or to the company for a profile week?
I will give you the 60-second answer, and then you should give me a call to get the in-depth full answer. Presently, this is a new effort. We have one profiler in the state that I know of. We don't have ours anymore, so. No, we have 3. Oh, you do? 3, look at that. We have 3 in Cowlitz County. And that's all that I know of. So the length of time would be depend on where you live in the state and how far or close it is for that person to travel. And the way profiling works is it's up to the profiler and their organization to work with you to determine the cost. So presently in Washington, you could work with Lower Columbia College to get their cost. In some states, it's completely funded by the states. In other states, it costs $10,000. Some states, there's not a cost at all. ACT doesn't charge a cost when we do profiles. It really is something that's different state by state. And in Washington, we're going to need to determine our need and our interest in investing in this, and then figure out a way to roll it out. But for right now, you can contact Lower Columbia College.
We also have aggregated the jobs for the construction and energy industry on one sheet of paper. And Dawn, I'd share, it's under the employer toolkit. There's actually at the very top, there's, I believe there's one for the construction industry and work-ready communities. We also have aggregated all of the jobs that are common for the construction industry together as well, but it would not be on this website. It's a different PDF. I can share it with you. I'd be happy to send it to you. Just try line, sometimes they're called linemen too. Electrical power line installers, first line construction, there you go. And you can see there's been a more significant number of profiles done recently in that particular one. It's the energy industry is one that utilizes this a lot.
So a quick question from the other side of this. I work with people with extreme poverty barriers and physical and mental barriers. So my job is as an employment specialist to go out and engage employers. Cowlitz County talks about having that fund available, but I'm concerned that there's only 2 people that have utilized that fund, and how many others don't know about it, or how many others have not been able to use that fund. And then the other question that I have for the panelists is, as a screening tool, if a person has a documentable disability, is there an opt-out? Because it certainly sounds to me like you are immediately discounting somebody that is not able to take the test if they don't have some of those certificates, or is a screening tool used to opt out?
I'll address the second question before we turn it to Cowlitz. I want to make sure it's a really important question. I want you to know that we've spent a lot of time working on this. We've worked with ACT, and there are a number of answers which depends on the situation. If a person has a disability which for some reason they could not test, there's one route that you would take. They also have the test available in Braille. You can listen to the test on headphones. So there are a number of different accommodations. And that, again, is a very long answer. We put a lot of thought into that, and I'm really happy to talk to you about it. So know that we are very aware of that.
So that's very important to us as an employer as well. And that's why that's not in our wheelhouse. That's why
That makes sense. You had mentioned that specifically.
yeah.
You're in the pre-program, not the screening tool for the employer.
And that's why we partner with the workforce, the community workforce organizations who do have those plans to help those individuals. And I will say we have had individuals who have requested accommodation, have been savvy enough to do that. They have received that accommodation through the organization.
I hate to cut this conversation off, but we need to let Jason get to his call, and I don't want to put us behind. But what always amazes me is we continue to have this dialogue, and it continues to bring up more questions. So, Dawn, do you have anything more to?
I do,
sort of
yes, just
close?
one closing statement. We had guests that traveled from Atlanta and California and Southern Washington, and I want to ask you to please give them a big round of applause. They did not need to be here. Thank you.